The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and an I love you that broke the internet.
No! This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Bonjour, Mila Steve.
This week, we're discussing Season 2, Episode 3 of Daryl, Dixon. Title of the episode is L'Impossible. I was having fun with it because I was like, everybody always makes fun of Les Miserables. Mm-hmm. And then as stupid Americans will be like, Les Miserables, and make fun of it. So all day long, I've been calling it L'Invisible.
Invisible.
Invisible.
That's how you pronounce it.
I'm sure, you have to put a real heavy accent on the bleh.
That's right.
That's what all of French is about.
Look, if you pull that other country's bacon out of the fire in World War situations more than once, you can pronounce their words however you want, France.
We'll say blah, and you're like it.
That's right.
And you can just call us stupid Americans, and that's fine. I'll take that.
Yep, here's our sign.
Yeah, sorry. Before we get into details, I made a note here because I want to make sure. Can you believe we're halfway through the season so far already?
I know. I was watching it yesterday. That was the first thought I had. I was like, oh my God, we're halfway done. It's just
halfway through. We're halfway through.
and I mean, it's amazing how far that it's come from, going back to like Walking Dead, like, the first couple seasons when, they did like, 18 episodes in a season.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And now we're down to 6. I mean, and part of it has to be a cost that it's just very expensive to make.
Yeah. I mean, they're filming in other countries. It's definitely got to be they're like, listen, Norman Reedus, we like you, but we don't 12 episodes like you. 6 episodes like you.
Well, and you know what? That could also be the other way. It could be Norman Reedus going, I like doing the show,
but I don't like it 12 episodes. Yeah, I like it 6.
6. Yeah, exactly. He's got to like ride his motorcycle around the world and film it. So that takes up a lot of his time. So
it does. He's a busy man.
So yeah, it very well could be the other way. But it is mind-boggling to think that. I mean, it seems like they just started and we're almost done. Yeah,
that's the part that's crazy. I'm fine with the shortened season. It's just exactly like you said, where I feel like we're just about getting sort of ramped up, and then it's gonna be over.
Right? Yeah. I mean, well, they're gonna go 2 more episodes, and then it's like, okay, we're kind of the way that the Walking Dead shows have worked in the past. We would be just kind of building to the halfway point.
Right.
And whatever the plot is for this season, we're getting to the point of like, okay, now we're coming up to the cliffhanger at the end of the mid-season, finale. And then we'll have 6 or 8 more episodes to work our way out of it. But here it's like, nope, you just got 3 more episodes and then it's done.
Yeah, it moves quickly, and it's even though like you say 6 episodes and we know it's shorter, once you're in it, it dawned on me when I was looking at the title of next week's episode, and I was Google translating it, and then I was like, oh, what are the other episodes? And I was like, oh, there's only 2 left, and I was like, there's only 2 left, after next week's episode. So I was like, oh my God, we're halfway through. And then I got all sad and, despondent, and, I had to, it's fine. I worked it all out. I'm fine. So anyway,
see now you say that it's fine and it's not a problem, but my experience with girls is that when they say that, they don't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine in the air quotes female sense that I'm fine, which means I'm not fine.
I'm not fine, and you are going to pay for this. That's usually what I've always interpreted that to mean.
So. Basically, it's your fault, and you should just admit it now. Is what I'm saying.
That's right. Let me just say, yes, Diana, you're right, Diana. I'm so sorry, Diana. Would that help?
Yes, especially since I have this on tape.
That's true.
I can use this whenever I want.
That's true.
Or whatever. Okay, so that being done, now that I have Steve apologizing, ad infinitum for the rest of his life, because it's on tape, yay! Let's get into a little bit of talking about the episode itself. Before we get into details, let's just, quick roundup of thoughts on the episode itself. And you went first last week, so I'll go this week. My quick thoughts on the episode: it felt very much like a mid-season episode like standard Walking Dead. Nothing bad. A couple of really moments. I would say we were talking before, and I said I really felt like there were more questionable moments in this episode than there had been in the first two, but still overall more good than the questionable stuff. And still the things that were good were like really good, and they were entertaining, and character combinations and things like that. So I would put this this was a good episode. Overall, I felt entertained, and only a handful of things that I really felt were like, bleh, and we'll talk about those. But how about you? How did you feel about this episode?
Very similar, and just kind of what we were just talking about. This episode actually, to me, felt a lot like a mid-season finale.
Okay. Yeah.
That we did really get a cliffhanger for the first time. I mean, the first two episodes did not end where, one of our main characters is, and I'm using air quotes here, in jeopardy. I mean, I think we all know that, that Carol's not right. She's not, but again, they try and like play it up like it is. And if you even watch the scenes for next week, you already see she's going to get out of it. So,
of course.
But again, that shouldn't be a shock to anyone. Like we were just talking about before we started, like, when your name is in the title, you're pretty safe. So.
Yeah, it doesn't say like the Book of Genet or the Book of Cadron. I mean, it's really the Book of Carol.
Yeah,
kind of gives you at least for this season. They may change it to like the Book of somebody else for next season, and Carol's on the chopping block. Yeah. But for now, I'd say she's, she's got a good shot at being safe.
At least for like next week, because it's like they're going to at least have them like see each other, at least, right?
Yeah,
at a minimum, So yeah, it's but overall though, if you just looked at this episode, it really did have the structure and the setup and the feel of a mid-season finale. Yeah. Where we have. Daryl is, locked up in the nest, and Isabel's there, and clearly, he just had like a therapeutic breakthrough, and they're holding hands, and all that stuff's going on, and you've got Laurent, and he's kind of out in the woods with Falou, and we don't know what's going to happen with them. You have, the nest is now in danger because Genet's got her army she's, bringing there, and then Carol's, theoretically going to be shot and turned into a ghoul, right? All the elements are there for a mid-season finale where we now would normally have like 6 or 8 weeks to be like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure Carol's going to be okay, but it's a long season. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah,
could do anything.
Sure, but and I agree with you that there were definitely a couple of like really moments in this episode, but what are you gonna do? They only have 6. They that is gonna limit your ability to tell a story where there's gonna be a lot more really convenient moments. You know what I mean? So
they're gonna have to like squeeze it all in together and have some things that are like you don't have time to like develop and grow.
Yeah,
just
you're right.
Naturally. Yeah.
And I think too, I felt that this episode had a lot of great lines. from multiple characters, not just from one, specific person. I mean, I think a lot of people got some great things to say.
Yeah.
And so very quotable, and some were funny and some were serious. And so I really appreciated that. So overall, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying this whole show. So this episode was just kind of like right in line with what we've been having so far this season.
Yeah. So far, so good. I would say out of the 3 we've had so far, there isn't a bad one in the bunch, And like you said, there we have had some like really moments, but again, those are probably more a victim of what you just said. Shortened season, not as much time to sort of develop into things or let things sort of progress naturally, and so there are a handful of things that felt unnatural or unearned or whatever, but overall great season so far. Engaged, I'm entertained, I'm at moments I'm actually on the edge of my seat for some of it. So that's great. Before we get into our individual moments for the episode, we will of course as usual discuss the always fulfilling and full and tons of descriptive adjectives used in the episode description.
Oh,
so
yes.
Steve, that's your world, so you go.
All right. Well, as promised, people, this week's episode is being brought to you by...
No trip to post-apocalypse Paris is complete without a visit to Café Genet. World-renowned for the amazing artwork that adorns its walls. All original works of art. How do we know? Because when they went to museums, we are the ones who took them off the f***ing walls. Café Genet is also known for its outstanding, authentic French cuisine. We offer French wine, French bread, French dressing, French toast, and of course, French fries. So what are you waiting for? Treat yourself to Café Genet today. Café Genet, where the floors are so clean you could eat off them. And trust us, you will.
Café Genet, located just south of the remains of the Louvre.
Wow, I know I can't wait to eat there.
I mean, just the food selections alone, and I'm a fan of eating on the floor.
Oh, me too. I'm doing it right now.
Don't let anything I say change that.
You give me a nice clean floor and some lentil stew, I'm happy.
Oh my God, the 2 things at the top of my list.
All right, well, anyway, next time you're in post-apocalypse Paris, please visit Café Genet. So let's move on. Our episode description is as follows. And again, this is for season 2 of The Walking Dead, the Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. This is season 2, episode number 3, La Invisible. And English translation is The Invisible. And our description is as follows. Carol searches for intel about Daryl's location. Daryl, Isabel, and Falou rush to rescue one of their group. Genet and the Pouvoir regroup their forces. That is your episode description. Mm-hmm. And, I can attest that those things did happen. So,
they did. Yes. More things happened, and with more description, but, very, very limited sense. Yes, that happened.
Yes.
Let's talk about our writer and director of the episode.
All right. Well, they are one is new and one is a name that probably would be familiar, I think, to Walking Dead people. And that starting with our writer. Our writer is a gal named Lisa Zwirling. Mm-hmm. And this is her one and only credit so far in the Walking Dead universe.
Interesting.
So she is a newcomer, but she has written in the TV landscape in the past, and some of the shows that she has written for include ER.
Oh, wow.
flash forward, the event, and betrayal. Those were the kind of the 4 big ones that I found. So, but ER, I mean, first of all, that means she is not like a right out of college kind of person.
Yeah, no kidding.
But still, so clearly she's got some chops, and she's worked in the biz for a long time. And like I said, I liked a lot of the dialogue in this. I thought there was a lot of great lines kind of layered in for a lot of people. We got to hear the F-bomb multiple times by Daryl Dixon in this episode.
Yeah. Is Lisa Zwirling from Boston by any chance? Because, it felt like I was listening to my peoples talking.
Well, yeah, you know what? It did not say what region she is from. So I am unable to answer. Yes. And no one said, Boston in the episode where we could have got a clue or anything. But anyway, that was your writer, and then our director was a guy named Michael Slovis. Sounds familiar to you. It's because he has written 3 episodes for the main show. He wrote episode 6.3, Thank You. He wrote episode 7:15, Something They Need. And he wrote episode 8:15, which was entitled Worth. So he wrote 3 episodes in the main show. Then he wrote 2 episodes, he directed 2 episodes of The Ones Who Live, the Rick and Michonne series. He directed episode 1.3, Bye, and he directed episode 1.4, What We. And if you remember, that was that weird Scott Gimple thing where the titles all made like a long phrase or whatever. So yeah. But anyway, he did episode 3 and 4. He directed 3 and 4 of that show, which I think I think you would agree we enjoyed.
We did enjoy that series.
And then this is so far is the only Book of Daryl episode that he's directed that they list. So possibly he could return for season 3 or beyond that if there's something beyond that. But so far, this is the only one that he is credited for. So that is your writer and your director.
All right. Well, let's start with what I thought was one of the strongest scenes in the whole episode, which was the cold open. And we get this really great scene. I basically just broke it up into 3 different chunks, and the whole thing together just made it really great. I put flashback to the Louvre, Mona Lisa, Genet's husband. But I mean, there's so many more layers there. But I mean, essentially this flashback of sort of who Genet was before the apocalypse, how she sort of, you can see the seeds of who she becomes towards the end of one of the scenes there. I just, the visual of using I forget what that exhibit is called, but it looks like a pyramid. It's that glass pyramid that's right by the entrance of the Louvre.
It's the Louvre. Yeah, it's the entrance to the Louvre.
Yeah, but I mean, that is an actual exhibit. It was built by an artist, and I forget what it's called. They talked about it in Da Vinci Code, and I forget what it's called. Because inside there's an inverted pyramid that's like the twin that goes along with that. It's a whole thing. But anyway, I mean, it's glass. You can see right out into the courtyard, and it's just so wonderfully staged, so that you can sort of see everything is sort of falling apart outside. And, all Genet wants is her husband to be able to come in, and, the soldiers won't. And, we're not quite at a point yet where people are like, screw you to the soldiers. They actually, paid attention to what they were saying. And, she sees her husband get, attacked by the ghouls, like directly in front of her. It's like, talk about like, that's your reality of becoming aware of what's going on in the world, is watching your husband get torn apart right in front of you.
Right.
I mean, that's got to have an effect on your psyche.
Yeah, that might leave a mark that you would need years and years of therapy to, change.
Yeah, I I'd say so. And I don't think there's a lot of therapy happening in the apocalypse. So her way of working through those emotions is to start a post-apocalyptic cult and, have everybody bow down to her, and, it is what it is.
Yeah. I thought it was real interesting that the woman who is her second in command now kind of was like her boss in that.
It seems she was kind of in a supervisory role. Yeah. Her name is Sabine.
Sabine, okay.
Yeah.
And just, but over Janae, it seemed like she was much more the alpha of that little group than Janae was, and it's it's like I want to see more of that. How did she develop into, the sociopath that she is today? So
what was that jump?
Yeah.
Because you see sort of like the seedlings of it, but you don't really see, like you said, where it goes from A to Z, like all the way to the end of the line there.
Z, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see what you
Zombies.
did there. Use the Z word, that's okay.
Yeah, I use the Z. I loved the use of the Mona Lisa. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where it's like they've already been using so much of Paris, so many well-known pieces of Paris as, sort of part of the storytelling in this show. So the fact that it's like the most famous painting in the world, it didn't feel like cheap for them to take, like there are hundreds of pieces of art in the Louvre, thousands even. And this is the one that they choose. But because we've already had like moments of seeing like, the Arc de Triomphe, they had all this stuff happen by Eiffel Tower. We saw the that one statue, the one that's exact replica of the Statue of Liberty. And like there's been these moments where the art and the architecture have been such a large feature of this series that it felt earned for them to be able to use the Mona Lisa in this way. And it didn't bother me at all that it was, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, of course she's cleaning right by the Mona Lisa when the world falls apart. And I'm like, yeah, but, if you were a janitor working at the Louvre, it's an important part of your job to keep that is the most visited piece of art. It's going to be the dirtiest. There's going to be the most, so it's okay. It was okay to me. And I liked that it's, this mysterious piece of art. Everybody for years has always, just like she says in the episode, have wondered, what is she thinking? What is going on in the mind of the Mona Lisa? And, it's interesting to hear, Janae's take on it and Carol's take on it.
I think Janae's take is very revealing, when she basically says that you can tell that there's something underneath that smile. That the Mona Lisa is sort of, she's smiling, but the wheels are turning, and it just totally gives you insight into her and who she is and so on. So I thought that was an incredible line, and here this is the first time that Carol is meeting her. So she, they're both sizing each other up,
Yes.
They're both figuring out how much do I reveal, what persona do I want to give off, all of the things that, sociopaths do when they meet new people to manipulate, so.
Right.
Yeah. It was great.
It's great because the way everything was sort of structured, you get this great flashback of Janae, and you see her, when she's talking with her coworkers about how they're going to go on strike and everything. And she talks about it not being worth it. She almost seems kind of timid, a little scared of doing what they're going to do. And then, there's the things fall apart and what happens to her husband. And she looks at the Mona Lisa afterwards and has like this moment, and they show her sort of, around all the people that have been stuck inside the Louvre, because they were stuck inside there for a certain amount of time, and because they wouldn't let them out,
right.
That's why they are alive today, is because they weren't allowed to be let out. But you can see her sort of like the wheels turning, and she's almost like having a Mona Lisa moment where there's something going on inside of Janae, but we don't know what it is, but we know that it's there, because it helps her sort of become who she's going to be. And, then there's this like nice close up on the Mona Lisa, and then it transitions from the flashback to current day. And I thought that was great. I thought it was a beautiful transition. All they did was use a little bit of light to make the adjustment, and that's it. And I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful effect. I know you put it down there. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
That the transition was great. I mean, the whole flashback, you could tell it was that they shot it with a very blue light tone to it. And then you get that shot where she's in the past, she's looking up at the Mona Lisa, and then it cuts to the Mona Lisa, and then it very slowly they kind of wipe away that blue palette that they've established, and they give you the much harder, grainier light of the present day. And you're right. It was very effective. It's not a new technique. It's something that's been done before, but they did it really well. Right. And it immediately tells you, okay, now we're done with that, and now we're back in the present. So now we're no longer remembering. So that, and the husband, I mean, he the only thing that would have made it better is if he was like trying to get through the revolving door. Right. We've seen that scene before.
That dude got munched, and it just, again, and I hate to keep bringing up a horrible memory for all of us, but it just shows you how weak the showrunners were for Fear. That here so far in this show, in this season, 3 episodes, I think we've had all three episodes we've had someone get eaten right on screen. Right. And I mean, big chunks of his neck get pulled off, and the blood spurts all right. I mean, there was so much blood that in the special feature they all talked about, because they really shot at the Louvre. They like closed it down and shot at night, and they had it all to themselves, and they had to get like special permission because they had put so much fake blood on it that the Louvre's like, we don't put blood on us, So I mean, and it just, again, I always just kind of go back to that. It's like, those 2 knuckleheads would never have the stones to show anybody get killed like that on there when they were in charge. You know what I mean? Their show was the most non-violent, violent show ever.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I thought it was great, and it wasn't horrific. Yes, but that's the point. Like you said, she has to see the one thing she loves more than anything else just get ripped to shreds in front of her, right?
Yeah.
And
no, go ahead, completely.
I was just gonna say, because that helps make her who she eventually becomes.
Yeah. I think too, it was a really good example of the things that Norman Reedus said about this series when he got started, was that this is almost like an artistic presentation, and there's like zombies going on in the background kind of thing. And we agreed last season, and I agree again. Here's this beautiful entrance to this world-renowned museum with this gorgeous, gorgeous piece, this glass and golden, and it's lit, and it's nighttime, and it's gorgeous. And he's being eaten alive directly in front, like the blood that splatters on the glass. And just the putting those 2 things together, the beauty and the horror right next to each other, is just, I think that's one of the things also that helps this series stand out from the others, because they have such beauty around them. We commented last season on all of the great architecture and stuff, that it's like, it hits different when you're like killing a zombie, but there's gorgeous building behind you that is like 300 years old.
Right.
And it just hits differently than like a shack in the woods in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And this scene was another example of that. It just the juxtaposition of the two together, this gorgeous piece of art, this horrific death, and they're sort of mashed together, literally.
literally.
And I think too, it's this great moment where this piece of art at the entrance, this glass structure spattered with blood, but it shows that the art on the inside remains intact. And, and then Janae has the whole conversation with Carol where she's talking about, we worked so hard to save these pieces. And you put the note in there, so that's why I didn't have to include it. But I loved the moment where Carol was like, "Are you sure it's the real thing?" And we know that it is because we've seen this flashback. But then to have Janae have her moment, she's like, "Yes, I know that it is because I'm the one who took it off the fucking wall." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yep.
And again, a great scene, great line, but again, Carol is also learning, who is this person? How am I going to get what I need from this person? How can I manipulate them with the most effect? So, yeah. And so go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so between that moment with the Mona Lisa and then directly after it is the moment with the soldier who ends up eating on the floor. And she introduces herself, Marion Genet, I have no tolerance for bullies. Welcome to Maison Mère. And then she smiles and leaves, and she does exactly what the Mona Lisa does. She smiles, but there's no warmth in her smile. Her smile is hiding everything that's behind it. There's all that stuff going on inside her. And it just was fantastic. What a great way to introduce Janae to Carol.
Yeah. And Carol, of course, concocts the whole I'm a tourist who was here. Got stuck, and I like too that they give us a number that, okay, so we're 13 years after the world stopped. Okay, good to know. Good to know. You know, we kind of wondered for some of those Angela Kang time jumps exactly how much time passed, right? So now we know.
Yeah.
That's
because
cool.
with the time from like the end of the war with the Commonwealth, and then that there's some time jump between that and when Daryl leaves and goes out on the road, and then he clearly has to have been in France for at least I'd say at least a couple months at this point.
Right.
And so to know that there's a year to put around it was nice to hear.
Yeah, I appreciated that a lot. So
and
I also appreciated just in that whole flashback sequence, before everybody's phones go off when the emergency is declared, right? All the employees are out like having a cigarette and discussing what's going to happen, and of course, Sabine, you said her name was. She's like, okay, so we're all going on strike on Saturday tomorrow. And that's going to cause a shitstorm because Saturday's a busy day and all the tourists and
right.
And Janae this is kind of funny because Janae is like, what's the point? She has no enthusiasm at all. And these people are trying to, rebel. They're trying to rock the authority and sort of, assert their, what they want to have happen. And she just does, she's like, all that's going to happen is we're going to draw some media attention and the government's going to continue to shirt all over us. Right. I mean, she says something to that effect of like, you guys think you're going to make change, but nothing's really going to change. And you can kind of tell that everybody's kind of looking at her for like, are you sure we should be doing this? Is this, you know what I mean? And I got that sense that a lot of people are kind of waiting for Janae to speak up about, is this a good idea or not? And then when we get to the present, she's completely not that person anymore, because not only is she led a revolt, she's like the person in charge now.
No
you know
kidding.
what I mean? So I thought that was really, again, a real interesting, before and after kind of snapshot of her, in that back then, she was someone that clearly had a little experience with working and dealing with the government in terms of labor and pay and benefits and all that, and was well aware of it doesn't do no good. We can go on strike, we can do all this stuff. Nothing's really going to change. We're just going to make a little bit of a name for ourselves. We might go to jail, right? Because it's France, a little different than the U.S. But that's it. And then now you cut to the present day, and she is the freaking Mona Lisa now, right? She is the one that has the plans going on behind the smile. And so I thought that was just like you said, it was just a really wonderful way to introduce that character to Carol, and to have Carol be introduced to her too. Although, both of them were not super honest about who they really are yet, but it was fun.
No. Yeah. In the continuing adventures of not being able to assess Carol appropriately, from that moment on, I think everybody gets like a little bite to eat or something, but then they're sent to go get like assignments.
Yeah, like
where
work.
they're
They're
going.
They're gonna get their job.
Yeah, and so she meets up with the guy again, Remy, who she was in the truck with. And, they go to get their assignment. Before they do, they hear a little something, and they go take a peek, and they see the doctor doing the experiments on the walkers. But they follow along because there's people being led down a path that are, they're sort of cuffed,
they're
like they're prisoners.
Yeah.
And they bring them down a separate path than where they're supposed to be getting their job assignments. And they're like, well, what's that about? So they follow along, even though they know they probably shouldn't. And then they watch. The people who are prisoners are shot dead, and they're shot like across the chest.
Yeah.
So that all of their heads are intact.
The doctor specifically says, don't aim for the head. So
yeah, he's not a fan of our show.
Not a fan of the podcast.
No, not a listener. And then they use the, whatever their concoction is to, and he even tells them, time, how long it takes for them to, be revived, etc. And he, gives them a shot. The first one revives almost immediately and is super aggro, and they end up shooting that one in the head because it was a little too much, and they're like, adjust the chemicals a little. So they're going to try again and like dial it back. And there was this great moment because they're like peeking through, and there was a soldier like right near the opening that comes to the opening and is like, get out of here. Do you want to be taken next or whatever?
Do you want to volunteer?
Run. Yeah, exactly. They're like, bye-bye. No, thank you.
Yeah. It was real interesting. The scientist is like, we'll start with like 20 cc's. And so after they're dead, he's like just injecting a whole bunch of them. Again, no need to get a new needle, right? It's
Why? Who cares?
Yeah, no chance of infection
no
here.
No sanitary needs.
Yeah. So he does, and then actually a couple of them revive, and they put them down, and then he's like, all right, we'll adjust it, and they even he says something like, we need soldiers we can control. And like you said, when they revive, they're like crazy, super amped up, almost like 28 days later, infected people more than the Walking Dead zombies we're used to. And so they're, as Remy and Carol are watching, Carol's like, what are they doing? And Remy's kind of explaining, like he's like the expert, right? He's the guy. I mean, he got there literally like 10 seconds before she did, yet he somehow knows all this stuff, right? That was one of my really moments. But he points out to her, and again, I thought this was a fun little exchange. He's like, Janae's trying to make a stronger breed, and Carol's response is, great. That's just what the world needs.
Yeah, kind of ridiculous, and nobody needs that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and you're right. And then the soldier's like, kind of bangs on the opening and is like, get the hell out of here. It's like, do you guys want to volunteer? And they're like, nope, we're leaving.
No,
fine,
thank you.
Gotta go. Yeah,
we're out. With the Remy stuff, it's a little convenient that he knew a lot of stuff. But you know what I did was I kind of chalked it up to rumor mill, because everybody in Paris knows who Genet is and the pouvoir. So they came out to get food and to be conscripted in to volunteer. They took X amount of people, and other people were allowed to leave. They have give and take with the community. But I'm sure there's some kind of rumor mill that must go around of, we've heard that Genet is doing XYZ. And, maybe Remy was just sort of confirming some rumor stuff that he had heard or knew about from previous stuff. So at first I was like, how does he know that stuff? And I was like, well, he's from there. So maybe he's heard some rumors or whatever, and is just sort of letting Carol know because, she's, from someplace else and wouldn't know.
She's from a little bit east.
Yeah, just a little east.
That's what she said. Yeah, I know, and I suppose you're right that could be it. And he does point out that clearly some of the acid walkers have gotten out and are out in
burners,
the wild.
They call them.
Yeah. So and he says those were early versions of this experiment that somehow accidentally got out and got away from them. So it's possible that, as people are experience those guys and gals, they're like, oh my God, not only are they flesh-eating ghouls, if you, slash them open, they have acid for blood, they're like the alien.
Yeah.
And so having heard of that, wonder where they came from. And then that sparks, oh, didn't you hear, Genet is trying to make better, ghouls. Oh, okay. So I suppose that makes sense. But during the moment when I first watched it, I'm like, of course that guy knows it. Because, he's been there for a minute before you,
Yeah. Yeah. In the moment. And again, another thing where it's in the moment in a series that is compressed like that, you have to sort of play the moment as it is in the moment. And it's you don't have time to be have him tell the story and then have Carol go, how do you know that? And then he gets to well, we've been living near here for so long and we've talked to people and there just isn't the luxury to sort of expound on it. Right. So, sometimes a scene hits a person a certain way and sometimes it, we're going to hear about somebody who hated that scene because they're like, how could he possibly know that?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Because they just didn't, the effects of having such a short season.
Right. Got to move it along, people. Got to move it along.
So Remy and Carol end up at the, in line to get the job assignments.
Well, they did that before we watched the soldiers.
Okay. But before they did that, they get their assignments, and you and I both made a comment on it because the guy just looks at Carol, takes a brief second, and he's like, he says the French word for kitchen, and Remy's like, they put you in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah, and he gets the stables, and it's great because Carol's like, Daryl isn't really a kitchen kind of person, so I doubt we'll find Daryl in the kitchen. So you ask people in the stable if they've heard of him.
Yeah, exactly. And which was probably her first mistake, was getting him involved in the whole help me look for thing. Well, yeah.
Well, again, I think it's I love the irony of it that somebody that Carol meets in this world uses and manipulates her and then basically rats her out for their own advantage. It's like, gee, Carol, the pot's calling, you're black, you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
It's I thought it was delicious how he you think he's like, oh, this guy's gonna be like an ally. And there, he is totally 100% Team Carol. No, not at all.
Well, he was Team Carol until he needed to be Team Remy.
Yeah,
and she gave him something that he knew he could use, and he did. And
he did, and he used it, and he, well, I mean, I suppose Janae could, just kill him later on, but we do hear her say, drive them back to Paris and take them wherever they want to go. Yeah. So maybe she's one of those villains that will live up to the bargain and not, be like, no, we're just going to kill you now. You know what I mean? Because usually that's what happens, right? It's like,
I was trying not to be too overly hopeful, but I was thinking about when they did do the recruitment scene, and there were a lot of people that were just allowed to leave. And those folks, some of them had weapons too, that they pick their weapons back up and they just leave peacefully.
Yeah.
So part of me feels like she actually does live the people are a resource mantra, but like really lives it. Like it doesn't make any sense, if she keeps him alive. If she knows where hands up, maybe that's someone she could use later and lean on them because she knows that they have a weakness. His husband would be something that would create a weakness in him. So I don't know, but it also helps keep him recruited for the cause. He'll be,
I think too, there's also just a practicality sense of it in that if you hold these big recruiting, events where you say, come on out, you have a chance to join. And then the people that don't join, they just kill. After one or two of those things, no one's going to show up anymore.
Exactly.
You like you said, it's a resource. So you don't want to manipulate it or overuse it or misuse it because then it'll go away. So,
for sure.
But yeah, and I also like because the moment where she's talking about, you're going to the stables. Well, Daryl, that's more of, I think, where he would be. And he's like, oh, does he like horses? And she goes, the iron kind. And he's like,
and
what?
He's like, what?
Yeah, she's just like, never mind, But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. And also, I took it as, it's Melissa McBride kind of throwing a little shade at his, ride with Daryl Dixon, so yeah, and in a very playful way, right? Not malicious, just her just kind of having fun, making it funny. So, but yeah, you're right. Again, they totally they look at Carol, and the book and appearances and all that, right? I mean, they totally dismiss her immediately as. Maybe she can, make some biscuits if we're lucky. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just no skills. She has nothing to add other than, what? Why don't you go cook something, right?
Yeah.
And she is totally fine with that. That's what she wants. She wants everybody to keep underestimating her because, then she's going to get her way. So, but again, very much. It's like if any of these bad guys in Walking Dead had any kind of a newsletter, you would think that like page 1 would be, if you ever meet this Carol. Woman, yes, do not put her in the kitchen. Do not dismiss her because you will die, Yeah.
She'll make cookies that will poison you.
Yes. So she will end up shooting you. She'll end up burning you in your sleeping bags when you're sleeping. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Oh, geez. From there, we kind of we finally sort of pivot to the, I'm going to call it the Daryl story, but
don't they all, before we do that, because when they leave, when the testing sequence, when the guard chases them off, she finds the girl that the dude dumped the stew in front of, and she's carrying this big pot, and Carol's like, oh, you know what? I think I'm assigned to help you. And so she just grabs it, and they walk in, and they're handing out stew. And of course, this is where Carol's like, hi, have you ever heard of Daryl Dixon? To everybody. Yeah. And then she runs into Quadron.
Yeah.
And Quadron, of course, is, seen better days, right? I believe he lost 2 fingers on his left hand. Was that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of his eyes is completely swollen shut. And he's got all kinds of blood and scar. I mean, he looks bad. And this was definitely another really moment. And again, like you were saying, this is a compression of the season issue, in that literally, he has just finished probably weeks of torture where Janae is saying, "Where's Daryl Dixon? Where's Daryl Dixon? And he's like, no. And then literally this stranger walks up to him and goes, "You know where Daryl Dixon?" And he's like, "Yes, I do. Let me tell you." You know, where it's just like, really? It's like, why? Why would you do that? You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, he does, right? And he tells her, it's at this fortress. And so then she makes the classic mistake. You know, number one is never get involved in a land war in Asia. And number two is this one, and that she goes and she tells Remy, and Remy, of course, is like, "Oh yeah, it's this place over in Normandy. You can't miss it." And so, you know, she then tells him goodbye and is going to try and ride off in the white horse. And then, you know, the guards are all there waiting for her. And then we get the shot of Remy, and he's like, "Look, you would have done the same thing if it was for Daryl."
Yeah. And she has to sit in that moment and realize, well, son of a bitch. Yes, I would.
Yes, I would. Yeah, it's just like, yeah,
and I've already done it like 10 times. You know,
right,
think about the lies and the things that she said to Ash and how she got there.
I mean, just over and over and over again. Yeah. Anyway, so, and I believe after that point, that's when they cut back to the Daryl part of it. We get to Laurent and the ceremony and all that.
Yeah, it was, and it starts off with, unfortunately, it's we get the conclusion of Sylvie as a character.
Oh, I know.
Which was really sad. She had Laurent's best interest at heart, and she was so like principled in trying to fight what was happening to Laurent, and she ended up, it was tragically, it looked like they were just trying to grab her to take her prisoner, but she falls from a big height and she dies that way. And it's great moment where Lo Sang is right next door and says, "Her faith was weak."
Her faith was weak.
And I'm like, yeah, but also maybe her ankles were a little bit too, because she tripped and kind of fell.
Her faith was weak, and her neck was weak because it couldn't hack when it fell and landed, after falling for like 30 feet, right?
Yeah. Your faith is weak, and your ability to fly was also kind of low.
Very weak. Yes.
Yeah. So that was a real like, oh man, fuck you to Lo Sang. Her faith is weak.
Well, but it's interesting that Lo Sang, he tries to come across as this, he's not violent, and he's leading this movement, and he's deeply concerned about everyone and their well-being, and yet when she dies, you can tell the only thing that he's concerned about is, we got to clean this up because like in 10 minutes the ceremony is going to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's no empathy for her at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and I made a note too that like, they've got this ceremony that's happening, and they're gearing up, they're getting ready for it. And they get Sylvie out of the way and get cleaned up. And then Lo Sang finds Laurent, who, of course, doesn't know anything that happened. And he talks him into having, he drugs him, basically. He tried to make it seem nice. So, like, this will just keep you relaxed so that you won't be worried and whatever. And I love Laurent. He's
relaxed.
Like, I am relaxed. And he's like, yeah, but we're going to relax you, like, really relax you.
Just drink it anyway.
What he should have said is, let me give you an example, okay? This woman who's fought battles that you've sort of, and you've grown up around, who's been sort of a friend and you've known very, very well, and had nothing but your best interests at heart. She's dead now, and we're going to use her to bite you. Are you okay? You should be okay with that. I mean, so he's so drugged that when they reveal Sylvie in the, in the moment of the ceremony, they pull off her hood, and he's just like, yeah, Sylvie. Like, there's nothing there. Yeah. So he's totally out of it. Out of it.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit stronger than, the ingredients that Lo Sang says is in it.
Yeah, it's like valerian root. I'm like, and maybe some mescaline or something. I mean, dude, he's down for the count pretty much.
It was like Thorazine, you know what I mean? It was or it was like Valium, like jumbo economy size. I mean, it was you could tell. I mean, the way that when they walk him out for the beginning of the ceremony, you can tell that he can like barely walk. you know, and later on, when after the rescue happens and they're trying to spirit him away, Daryl and Falou are like getting further and further ahead, and Isabel finally is like, Laurent, you got to go faster, man, because he's just sort of like,
dude, I'm so stoned.
I know. He's like, I am tripping balls right now, you know. It's just, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know, like, what are your names? Remind me again.
I'm really hungry.
Where are we? Ooh, Twinkies?
Can we get some munchies? I'd really like some Doritos, like some Cool Ranch Doritos. They'd be so cool. Do they still make those? You know,
yeah. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
I've never had a Cool Ranch Dorito, but my soul tells me I'm supposed to have it right now.
Oh, my soul says they're so good. So you know, good. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So all right. So he's stoned. They're trying to do the ceremony. They've got Sylvie. Sylvie's on her way to biting him. Mm-hmm. Everybody's acting like this is the most normal thing they've ever seen in the world. And I'm like horrified. And then, Falou and Isabel and Daryl have this whole time, they've been trying to find a way to sort of breach the nest to get in, sort of sneak in so that they won't be detected. Because at this point they know, like, Lo Sang tried to kill us, so clearly we need to, be a little secretive in trying to get back inside. And they do finally, they get in, and they sort of are positioned just in the right place to sort of watch the ceremony get started. The three of them are kind of spread out a little, and just as Sylvie is about to like close in to Laurent, she gets an arrow right through the head. Mm-hmm. And the camera goes and shows Daryl, and Daryl says, show's over, motherfucker. I'm like, that's great.
Oh yeah.
There were 3 F words.
3 F-bombs in this episode.
Yeah, 3, because you had the 2 from Daryl, and then the 1 from Janae. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I thought that was really great. And of course, all hell breaks loose, and they're trying to, catch Daryl and Isabel and whatever. They grab Laurent and they run away, and they're all sort of running around the nest, and they eventually get separated out of necessity. They need to sort of separate so that, and Daryl does the thing where he's like, I'll come find you in like a day. Give me a day or whatever it is to try and fight his way out or whatever. So he separates from Isabel, Falou, and Laurent, and then goes off to sort of draw the soldiers away so he can so they can have safe passage. So he goes off and he's fighting them. And I'm so glad that you made a point of putting it in your notes too, because then an absolute video game moment of Daryl, like it's like everything around him. He like, this guy attacks him with a spear. I'm going to take your spear. I'm going to kill the next guy. I'm going to spin around. I'm going to stick something in this guy's eye. 2 seconds later, I'm going to do this and whatever. And that goes on in this like small enclosed space. He's in like this, like, room off to the side of wherever they were running away from on the path. He finds this room to sort of hide out in, and they comes upon soldiers, and there's fighting, and there's one after the other, after the other, after the other. And it's like, it doesn't seem like a lot because it's only like 3 minutes. It's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
But he mows through like, did you count how many people it was?
I did. The second time through I counted, and I should preface this. It looks to me like there are 12 confirmed kills, and that includes the 2 guys he shoots with arrows outside before he gets into the passageways and stuff, right? And it could be 13, but there's one guy that he kind of hits on the head with that.
Oh, he gets up a little bit and starts to go after him. Yeah.
And so it's like the way that he kind of hits this guy. It's like, well, that I don't think that would be a mortal wound, and I did not see that guy like stumble in later and get taken out. So I'm like, it could be 13, but I definitely got 12. And you're right, it's like 3 minutes. And, I mean, like, literally, it's like, hey, Lo Sang, you need to, like, retrain your guards because they suck, Okay.
Yeah, they were pretty bad.
Oh,
it was like a bunch of stormtroopers trying to shoot at him or whatever.
Right.
They were missing every shot.
And they like run, like he has like his knives out and they have guns and they like run right up to him so he can stab them. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, and you're right. Like he picks up like one of those life preserver rings and whips at a dude at one point, and he grabs this rope that's tied to the ceiling that's got like a heavy weight on the end, and he's swinging that around. I mean, it literally is like straight out of a video game where you're just manipulating everything around you and stuff. Right. And then the weirdest part to me is that at the end, when they finally corner him, they don't just kill him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, no.
It makes no sense.
We got to capture him. It's like, what? What do you, it's like 12 of our buddies are now dead because of this guy. And you know what I mean? The order might have been, you know, we need him alive, but I mean, your blood's pumping, the adrenaline's flowing, and you know, he just, you know, wiped out Louis and Frenchie and Guy and all these guys that you're buddies with. Oh yeah, we're not gonna, you know what I mean? It's I like relate it to like when, you know, you always hear and this is common in film and TV and stuff, somebody kills a cop. And then what is the cliche? Well, the cops aren't going to arrest him.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
If they find that cop, the guy that did that, they're just going to kill him and say that, you know, he tried to get away or he came at me with a knife, whatever. Yeah. And so you would think that would carry through here, but no, they're just like, no, we don't want to kill him, you know. And again, star of the show, I get it, but it's just that was definitely a really moment.
And it was different behavior. Like those guys that were fighting him, they were attempting to stab and shoot at him.
Yeah,
they weren't just like, you know, it wasn't just self-defense. They were attacking him.
Yeah, it wasn't, hey, surrender. It was like, no, I'm going to run at you and try and kill you. And then, oh, wait, no, Daryl got me. Yeah. I
mean, and then like 2 minutes later, they've got their guns pointed at him and they're like, haha, we've got you. And we will now not shoot you.
Yes, even though all of us could shoot you 100 times. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, it would have made more sense if he'd been cornered like that and if they'd all had like spears. Or swords, you know, it's something that holds someone at bay but doesn't immediately like kill them. You'd have to like step forward,
right?
You know, and you don't want to do that with Daryl because he could try and take you out. So it would have made more sense if they'd done that and had something that holds him at bay. Mm-hmm. But guns were just like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. It's just like, oh, come on. Yeah, but again, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a wonderfully choreographed scene, and it looked like they did it in like long takes, but it wasn't one continuous shot. There was definitely a little editing, but still, I mean, you know, that had to be, it had tight space like that had to be super rehearsed. And it looked like it was Norman Reedus, so.
Yeah, it probably took them a few days just to film that sequence, to get it all down pat and get it right. And because there were so many moments of, fight choreography there. There was like the whole thing. It was like he was standing in the middle of the room and just spinning and killing people as he spun.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like he was a ballerina. Yeah. It was very French of him, very French.
Very French.
Yeah.
Was it absolutely. Like, would you say it was like French bread or French wine or French dressing or
like
Peru?
French wine. It was like Peru. It was absolutely like Peru.
Okay.
So they do take
close
him.
To putting that in there. I was so
I know,
close.
So close. It's like the tip of your tongue. So they do take him prisoner, and you know, he's got this scene with Losang, which is just basically Losang, like, you know, sort of standing up for what he did and trying to describe to Daryl like why they're doing what they're doing and all of this. And Daryl's there and he's got blood on his face, so they've clearly like beat him up a little bit.
Yeah.
And Daryl's just basically like he doesn't buy any of it, and you know, Losang is still trying to get Daryl to like come to the cause, you know, and he won't, and he's like, you know, you need to tell me where that boy is. And he's like, I'm never going to tell you where he is.
Right. Right.
It's not going to happen, you know. And they end up, they throw him in what, their version of like a cell. and it was sort of like a little shower stall kind
That's
of thing.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a shower stall, and they just they chained him to it, and he's just in this small little cell. And then eventually they bring Isabel in too. Because while he's been caught, we are also at the same time, while he's having his crazy 13-man battle that happened and then gets caught and all this other stuff. So we separated from Isabel, Falou, and Laurent. Well, when they were trying to escape, Falou and Laurent were able to sort of get away, but there were just too many soldiers nearby, and Isabel just could not safely get to where they were without drawing attention. And she basically, Falou and her, like with just a look, they basically were like, you need to go, get him out of here. We'll find you. We'll come find you. Yeah. And obviously Isabel ends up getting caught because while Daryl's in this sort of cell area, the door opens and they come in, the soldiers, and they've got Isabel with them, and her face has been beaten up a little bit, so they've smacked her around a little and tried to get information out of her, and obviously it didn't work. So yeah,
she basically tells Lesang, I will never tell you where he is. I will never be on your side. He plays all of the cards of, you're one of us, and you believe Isabel for a long time, and this is just like a weird, like, you've just kind of strayed from the path a little bit, but there's a place for you here. And she takes it all in and then tells him he can go F himself. And it's just like, I'm not buying it, you go away, and I think I got the sense that Sylvie was sort of the last straw for her, that whatever belief she had in the movement there, when they pulled that hood off and saw that Sylvie had, not only had they obviously killed her, but that they were using her as in this thing, that was like the end for Isabel.
I forgot about that part of the scene, that they actually got to the location for the ceremony in enough time to be there for the reveal. And I was truly worried in the moment that Isabel was going to, betray like their location in the crowd by reacting to Sylvie, and she just couldn't. And she and Sylvie were so close. Very close. And to see your friend be used in that way, first of all, you have to mourn the fact that she's gone. And then also, here's this person who you were supposed to trust tried to kill you and Daryl, and now your friend is gone, and they're going to use Sylvie to try. It just to have that all happen on her face. So it's crazy that Lesang thought that he could still keep Isabel in the fold. You know what I mean? Considering all of those things that happened, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that he, in his own way, is just as sociopathic as Janae and Carol. Sort of twisting and manipulating these things to sort of work to his purpose.
Yeah. You're right, he is, but I think that the difference between him and Janae is that he at least kind of couches all the cold-bloodedness in this peace and love mantra of no, this is all part of the way, and Laurent is this symbol, and when the ceremony happens, it's going to prove we're all right, and we're going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. And Janae doesn't bother with any of that. She just is like, nope, I'm going to kill you. Sorry,
Yeah.
And just that there's no, and again, both of them have no empathy for anyone else, but it's just how they're kind of, like how are they saying it? How are they displaying it? That's what's different.
Right. Yeah. So Isabel gets thrown into the cell, and there's this interesting moment. Yeah, directly next to Daryl, so they can't, so they just can hear each other, really. They can't see each other. And when she hides like on the floor, like there's a drain cover. It's like a small grate, and we all know it. That's on the, in any kind of shower stall you're in. And it's probably, no bigger than like 2 or 3 inches across, like diameter. But the one in her cell is broken and it's jagged on the edges. And she covers it up with her boot. And then after the soldiers leave, she kicks it up and gets it up with her hand. And I will freely admit that the rest of this scene, when she's talking to Daryl and Daryl's like telling her a story and all this other stuff, and it's a really, really beautiful, very sweet scene. I thought she was going to kill herself.
Really?
So that I did, because I think I was like, okay, she's in this moment. She knows that they are going to torture her until she says something about Laurent, and she doesn't ever want to say anything. And the only way she can guarantee his safety in this moment is to kill herself, because then she knows she won't say anything. And here's this little piece of metal that she found, and she could do it. And so I really, like, that's what I thought her first motivation was. And it's clear, obviously, she doesn't do that. So she's clearly picked it up as a weapon to try and use in a later scene. And I can't wait. That's, totally, Chekhov's gun, it's going to be used at some point. And
drain,
Chekhov's drain cover. And I can't wait to see her use it, because we know it's there and she's got it.
Not to be Mr. Spoiler, but if you watch the scenes for next week, there is a scene where Lo Sang is talking to Daryl, and Lo Sang has this big, like, slash mark on one of his cheeks.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm thinking, my thought was, okay, so, Isabel tried to take him out, and he got close enough, and she, lunged at him or slashed at him, and she just missed the neck and got the cheek. Something like that is my guess. Maybe not. I mean, could be something completely different, but they do show Lo Sang with like a wound on his cheek that is very much like a cut. So
that'd be interesting.
But, yeah. It's funny though. Just talk about different takes on the same scene. Okay, when they chain her into her stall. And they first show the drain, they show a cockroach climb out of it.
Did you think she was going to eat it?
And that's what I thought. I thought she reached down and grabbed the roach, and I'm like, man, this girl she is a survivor. And that she's like, you know what? I'm going to eat this bug because it'll be protein and it'll keep me going. Because you have to assume they're not feeding them much as prisoners, right? That was my thought. And it wasn't until I saw the scenes for next week and we show her holding that drain. I'm like, oh, she didn't pick up the roach. She picked up the drain cover. Okay.
Yeah.
So, totally different. Yeah. I interpreted that scene completely different than you did. So
I love art.
I know. It's so great.
Yeah. And the thing too that, like, yes, eventually I was like, okay, fine, she doesn't kill herself, but that whole scene, her first reaction is she's like, tell me a story. And think about like the reaction of, please tell me a story, and I'm going to kill myself while you do that. I'm going to die listening to someone I care about tell this, lovely story, and that's the last thing I'll hear. And won't that be lovely? And I was like, as soon as she was like, tell me a story, I'm like, don't tell her a story, Daryl. Well, don't know what she has in her hand.
See, I kept waiting for him to go like, okay, so I was out in the woods, and I met this girl named Leah, and we shacked up for like 4 years, and that woman was an animal. She'd be like, "What are you telling me?"
She was crazy, and she shot a bunch of arrows at me, and I almost died.
I ended up having to gut her. It's just like, why are you telling me this story? Yeah. I also did you find, I found it interesting that, and I don't know if it was in this scene or maybe when they were like walking around the base of the fortress Falou was trying to find the place where they could climb up, right? And Isabel asks him at one of these points if does he think she'd like Ohio? So he clearly told her about the Commonwealth.
Yes.
And absolutely. Said, you know what, you and Laurent and I, we're gonna go there and eat freaking ice cream like every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was a neat little tie-in to the old show that is very, very quick and there's no follow-up, but it's there.
Yeah, and it's one of those, it was a great use of like a compressed time where you know, if you never watched the main series and you're watching this show, I don't know how you're following, but anyway, if you don't have that basis, you know, it would just sound like, you know, what's any average place in America that a French person might know about. Mm-hmm. And she could just be talking about it like without expecting any kind of answer. But, you know, people watching the main series, we know where the Commonwealth is. And as soon as she says Ohio, you know that they had that conversation. You know that he told her all of that and told her the story of how they, they persevered and came through, etc.
Well, and it's told her about Rick and Michonne and the last kicker,
fully functioning society, and you're gonna love it there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I like that. I can't remember when it happened, but it did happen. And it must have happened before because she keeps asking him about the fireflies in the shower stall scene. And he mentioned them before, and that whole, and then when she sticks her hand around the wall, right, and then they can just barely touch hands. And here's something I did want to ask you, in that he tells he tells her that Laurent is going to be able to go to school like a normal kid and do all the stuff that normal kids get to do, and then she's like, well, what can I do? And he's like, we can do whatever we want. He said, we can sleep in late. We can watch the sun go down. I mean, it's all this really romantic. It's like, the stuff like you wish, like for me, it's the stuff I wish I could say to the girl at the right moment. Right. And I'm sure for the girls, it's like what they want the guy to say to them kind of stuff,
Right.
And anyway, after he says all that really romantic stuff, she says in French, I love you.
Yeah.
And my question is, do you think he understood that or not? Because they cut to him and he's still reaching to hold her hand, but in the look on his face is not one of, ooh, I'm in. No, it was none of that, right? I mean, it was just sort of him. Yeah. And so what do you think? Do you think he realized what she said or not?
In my head, the way I interpreted it, I don't think he understands the words she said, but I think he understands the intent of what she said. I think he understands that she said something along the lines of, I care about you very, very much. Like you very important to me, and maybe not the words I love you, because I don't think there's any instance that he's been there where he would be, how do you say I love you in French? You know what I mean? Like it just wouldn't happen. I don't think there's an instance where that would happen. But I think it's obvious that she was full of emotion, and they were talking about each other. Mm-hmm. They weren't talking about Laurent. They were talking about what she said, what will I do? And
she said, what will we do? He said, what will we do?
And he said, we can do whatever we want.
Right.
He made it a we. He knows what she said. He doesn't know the words of what she said, but he knows that she made some proclamation of her feelings or how she feels about the situation, etc. That's what I believe. I believe he doesn't understand the words, but he got the intent. He got the gist, the intent of what she was saying. Yes. Yes.
All right.
I would
just
like
saying
to that,
because you know that in a normal relationship, this is good. This conversation is going to come up again someday for Daryl, and she's going to be like, you don't remember the time when I told you I love you, and he's like, No.
It's going to be like they're going to be ended up doing some kind of ridiculous mundane task, like something awful. She's going to be in the heat of Atlanta. Forget about Ohio. Mm-hmm. They'll be in the heat of Atlanta. She'll be covered in flies. She'll be so grossed out by everything they're working on. Like maybe she's learning how to gut a deer or something. And she'll be like, you told me we would sleep in every day. What are we doing?
I told you I loved you. And he'll be like, you did?
Huh? I thought you said that you were tired. I didn't understand.
I didn't understand a damn word you said, woman. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You said it in French. I didn't hear it. La, 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 la. I mean, we poke fun, but I think the way that scene went, because it had to go all by how you were hearing, because they couldn't see each other's face. So I really, really think that he, in the very least, understood the intent of what she was trying to say there in that moment. Especially since right before she says it, he says that thing, he repeats that French phrase back to her.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think it just, in that moment, it was, yeah. Okay. She gets it. He gets it. He knows what she was saying.
All right. Good.
And I think that's Chekhov's I love you. I think there's going to be something he sees later, because clearly, I'm so sorry, people. Clearly, Isabel is probably going to die.
Oh God, yes. I mean, that girl. There's no chance.
No chance. I don't know about Laurent. I think maybe Daryl and Laurent together might happen, but I don't think Isabel will make it, and I don't think it'll be this season. Maybe it'll be next season. I don't know. But I think there will be a moment where he either reads something or hears something in French and hears that phrase again. And he'll say, "Oh, I've heard that before. What does that mean?" And someone will be like, "Oh, that's what you say when you tell someone you love them." And he's gonna like cry and leave the room. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
boy, did I screw up.
But like I said, I think he understands the intent, but doesn't know that she specifically said, "I love you." It could have just been, "I care so much about you. I can't wait to leave with you. You know, you're my dream man. I just wish you'd shower more." You know,
maybe fall into a haircut once in a while.
Yeah. Like just like use a barrette or something and get it off your face.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, something, anything. But I loved that scene. I thought it was structured so beautifully. And a lot of that had to do with my own reaction to it, where I thought she was going to kill herself.
Right.
I was anxious. I was on the edge of my seat. I really thought, and like I said, I don't think Isabel's going to make it. So could this have been the scene? I don't know. Like we said, it's so compressed. Killing her in episode 3 is the same thing as someone on the main series dying in episode like 9. It's totally fine. Yeah. It could totally happen.
Right.
And so I thought there was a lot of tension, but there was a lot of beauty in this scene. It was just really well done. And I love that the hands touching was just that little bit of fingers, but it was perfect. It was just really well done.
Yeah,
I really love this.
Again, I kind of chuckle to myself because, you know, when she goes, "Tell me a story," you're like on the edge of your seat, like, "Oh my God, she's gonna kill herself and die!" And like, you know, the blood's gonna be running down the drain. And I'm sitting there going, like, she's like, "Tell me a story so I can eat my popcorn," because she's got this roach in her hand. She'd be like, "Tell me about the fireflies." You know, I mean, that's what I was thinking of. It's just like totally different.
Oh yeah. That's how art works.
That's how art works. Yeah. So sorry. So that finishes up the Daryl thing, but we kind of jumped ahead of some of the Carol stuff. So I think they kind of interspace stuff, because I want to say, like, when she's talking to Cadron, doesn't he ask her, like, you know, "Why do you want to find Daryl Dixon?" And she kind of looks at her, and I think, I put this in my notes, and I know you agree with me. When the show was broadcast over on the air, if you would have looked at the timestamp of when this next line happened, if you would have stuck your head out your window of your house anywhere in the United States, and probably most of the planet, you could have actually heard all of the shippers out there screaming in agony. Because when he asks her, "Who is this Daryl Dixon?" she says, "He's my brother."
Yeah. So that's the end of that, sexy people.
Oh, so sorry. You know, so sorry. Oh, so close. So close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in that moment she does get choked up about it, because, you know, it's amazing. Oh my God, I actually found someone who knows who he is. And so in that moment she does get a little choked in the moment, and she's you know, struggling with her emotions. And when he's like, you know, what is Dixon to you? You know, why do you care? And then she's all broken up. And in my head I was like, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it, you know. And when she said, he's my brother, He's my only living relative. And I was like,
she says something like, he's my family first.
Yeah,
and then she goes on and says he's my brother, and then again you could just hear all of the the internet crazies wailing in agony at that point.
Yeah, there was a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, would it have been more impactful to be like, he's the man I love, and I'll love him the rest of my life, blah blah blah, like, would that have been a stronger thing to say? I don't know.
Well, you set up the classic love triangle, I suppose, so you could do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I kept half expected her to be like, I love him, I'm not in love with him.
Yeah. Yes, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, that would have been. But again, see, it's a good thing we're not in charge of these shows, because the comedy would be way higher. But and so then.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so she does her escape attempt. They catch her and they take her to Janae's office, where Remy and Remy's husband, and I think his name was Julian, if I'm not mistaken, are there.
Right.
And that's sort of like, he looks at her and he's just like, I'm sorry.
They're sheepish about it. Like, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Actually, if you rewatch the episode, when she is talking to him before she tries to escape, and she's like, he tells her where the fortress is, and it's about a 2-hour drive from here, right? He says that, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna go now. Thank you so much for your help. And he's like, good luck. When he gets in the bed, you can see he's like crying a little, like he's broken up about and clearly it's because he's gonna rat her out.
He knows what he's gonna do.
Yeah, or he already has, or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, because when I first saw it, I'm like, why is he that broken up for this woman that he met like an hour ago, that she's not gonna be there? But now it's like, oh, now I get it, right?
Yeah.
So they
betray her to do that.
Yeah. And so they leave, and so then we get this great scene with Janae and Carol, and really the rest of the scenes with Carol are just great scenes with Janae, and they're talking about Daryl, and well, first of all, she's like, okay, who are you and how did you get here? And I wrote this line down because, again, the truth,
the ridiculousness.
It is. It's like, it's so crazy. It has to be true. And Janae laughs when she tells her this.
She totally does.
It's brilliant. And so Carol's like, she's like, how did you get here? And Carol kind of like collects herself, and she goes, I landed 2 days ago from America. I manipulated an innocent man into letting me fly in his plane under the false pretense of looking for my daughter. We had to stop in Greenland, where he was almost used as a sperm donor, and I was nearly murdered by insane environmentalists.
and Janae just laughs.
She does.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy, right? But it's like it has to be true, because who would ever make that up, right?
Yeah, on the spot.
Yeah, but and it's so funny, because it's like, yeah, that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Oh, it's so funny. And so then again, and we kind of cut back to the Daryl stuff, and then we get back to, it's like the next morning, and I take that back. I believe it's at night that she asks, like, who is Daryl Dixon to you? Why are you looking for him? And again, this is where we see Carol trying to be clever.
Yeah.
Because she very coldly looks at Janae and says, I want to kill him. I'm here to kill him. And Janae's like, wow, what did he do to you? And she doesn't answer. And then I think Janae says, must have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so, again, thinking on her feet, good idea, reads the room. Understandably, these are not fans of Daryl Dixon. So, and doesn't Janae say that, he's aligned himself with these religious zealots? And Carol's like, Daryl's not really the aligning type.
Yeah. So she's not sure she believes what Janae is saying.
Yeah.
But it's like, are you sure you have the right Daryl Dixon? Is there some French version of Daryl Dixon? I don't know.
Dixon. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And of course, Janae's like, yeah, guy, scraggly hair, hasn't shaved or showered in like a month, carries a big knife. Daryl. And she's like, that's him.
She's
that's
like,
him.
Oh, yeah, that's him. That's him. Yeah.
Right. So
you smell him before you see him. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes, you do. And so then the next morning, they're in this convoy and they stop at the Louvre. Right. So we kind of go full circle to where the episode began. And
absolutely.
And I think one of these points that I wrote down this line because I thought it was great is that Janae is talking about these religious zealots and about religion in general, and I think Carol says like religion is about hope, in that it gives people something to believe in beyond the everyday. And Janae responds and says, again, kind of shoots her down and goes, religion is not about hope, it's about control. Which I thought, again, reveals a lot about Janae and how what her beliefs are in the world, right?
Right.
And so they show up and it's like the next morning, and they're far enough away from the nest that the nest can't see them apparently, and they unload all these people and they line them all up, and Carol's kind of off to the side and she kind of sees that the scientist dude is there, and Janae is like telling all these people like, your sacrifice is going to be really great. We're really happy that you're here, and so Carol comes up to her and says like, you're going to turn them. And she's like, yeah, I am. And you know what? I'm going to give you your chance to kill Daryl. and they herd her over with all of like the shooties, right? And the firing squad. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but the guy that Carol is put right next to is the stew guy from the beginning. Yep. Yeah,
I totally saw that.
Yeah. And so literally, again, if this were a mid-season finale, this is the cliffhanger, because we've already seen what they do to these people, right? They gun them down and then they inject them and they turn. This is what they're going to do, and they're going to use these people to attack the nest and hopefully overrun it and so on. And so things look bad for Carol. And my final note was oh, Carol, the moral of this story is you can't out Janae.
Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, my final thought was that, like, here Carol and Janae sort of met each other's match in terms of the manipulative sociopaths, but I think Janae proved to be the stronger of the two in terms of manipulation. We'll see what happens in the rest of it, because of course she'll end up with some kind of Achilles heel that they will exploit. But for right now, it's she's smarter. She figured it out quicker. She out manipulated Carol.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
it was a little too tight and easy for it to have, just progressed as it was going. Oh, yes, come along. You can come with us and kill Daryl.
Sure. That was a strange person I just met. Yeah. Well, here, this is my question. And this is a question for everyone, for listeners too, chime in, please. And that is, do you think that when Remy ratted out Carol, he ratted her out about Daryl as well? And so that whole time that Janae is asking her what's Dixon to you, she already knew and she just used her and manipulated her? Or do you think that, this woman is enough of a sociopath that, okay, you have revenge, that you're here to kill him because of something that he did? You know what? I'm just going to use that to my advantage, and you're cannon fodder. I'm going to zombify you anyway. It doesn't matter what your personal story is. What do you think? Do you think it's, oh, no, I'm going to turn it on you because I know the truth, or I don't really care what the truth is, I'm still going to use you?
I think it's the second thing. I think it's more that she just didn't know. I'm not sure that she gave the full breadth of who Daryl was to Remy. Or at least, I was going to say it's not a scene that we saw, but obviously they had a long drive and, she was in a emotional state, so she could have said whatever, but it just really feels like
well, I mean, just the fact that she told him earlier in this episode, ask people if they've met Daryl. So clearly he knows she's looking for him. And again, it goes both ways. Did she have enough forethought to set up the lie of like, I'm looking for this guy named Daryl Dixon because I want to kill him? Ask people if they know him, or was she like, oh my God, Daryl, he's like my soulmate, he's like my BFF, he's like, I love him, but I'm not in love with him. Can you help me find him? And so Remy might have passed that bit of information on to sweeten the deal of getting him and his husband out of there. Again, I don't know. It's totally possible we will get a flashback scene where we see him talking to Janae, and this question will be resolved. I think it's just really interesting right now where it's like, it really doesn't matter because Carol's still in the pickle. It's just, I think it just, it shows you just, again, how cold and dark Janae could be. And if she just like, I did not know that you and Daryl are best friends, I was just going to kill you anyway because that's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think she's just doing it because she knows she's just using it. Yeah, it's just who she is. Yeah. I think so. But here's the thing: it wouldn't surprise me if she had found out more information from Remy than let on and manipulated it. But I'm it seems more that she's just smarter. Yeah, that she just figured out that there's more to her than meets the eye,
Well, and Carol did, she did try and escape. She, knocked the guard out. So clearly she revealed that she is not what she appears to be. Yeah. So I'm sure in some levels, Janae's like, I can't trust you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right now, you're saying all the things of like, we have the common enemy and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But you know what? I'm just going to kill you at the same time and solve both problems,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think we hit everything in the episode that we wanted to talk about. Is there anything that we kind of missed? I'm looking through my notes.
Yeah, the only thing that we didn't cover, we did, but I didn't add this part, is that when Isabel does say I love you, again, at that moment when the show was broadcast, if you would have stuck your head out the window of your house, you would hear all the shippers screaming even more, because there were two moments in the show, and that was the second one. So
yeah.
So again, like I said, I thought there was some crackling dialogue in this, some really insightful dialogue about the people who were saying these great lines. They weren't just great lines. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Carol telling her storyline was just a hilarious, great line. And I just know Melissa McBride must have just laughed when she got that script, because she got to say that, because that was just fun. But almost every other line in this episode that I circled that I liked, it not only was it a cool line, but it was very character insightful for the person who was saying it. Yeah. And that's what great writing can do. And like I said, I thought this episode had a lot of that in there.
I agree. It was a lot of fun. It was entertaining on so many levels, but also had a lot of heart too, which I've been enjoying.
Yeah. All right.
Oh my God, we did it. Yay! All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, folks. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and everything that's coming up on the podcast. So, yeah.
All right. So stick around for the French bread and the French wine, and we will be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man on bed and he's attacking another man. He looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned...
Toxic Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiences, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey, everybody, we are back. We're going to jump into our feedback and then chat a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. So let's get started. So when I say feedback, usually when you get multiple feedback, the word for multiple feedback is feedback. You don't say feedbacks, and you wouldn't this week because we only got one piece of feedback.
Hey, you know what? But it's a great piece of feedback.
It is a great piece of feedback. And, we're usually swimming in feedback, and there's an embarrassment of riches. Last week we got a lot of feedback, but people also had an extra day because we recorded late. We're back on schedule, so maybe people just need to get back into the swing of things. In the States, it's a holiday weekend. Some people had off today. My story that I'm going with is that I think a lot of people who are regular listeners and contributors, I think they ran the Chicago Marathon here, Chicago yesterday, and they're just too tired. Frankly,
I think it's very possible. I think also there was so many F-bombs in this episode. I think a lot of people are still trying to collect their thoughts about what it all meant to them. So
yeah. I feel you. All right, so moving on. Here's our feedback. So we got an email from our pal Bev, too, from England. Bev, thank you so much for writing in.
Hello, Bev.
So here are Bev's thoughts on episode 3, L'Invisible. Bev writes in and says, "Hi, guys. I hope you had a great week. I know a lot happened in this episode, but for some reason, it felt quieter than last week's. I love the flashback. Janae was certainly a different person before the outbreak. I guess it either brings the best or worst out of a person. Ain't that the truth? I wonder if she always knew that Carol was there looking for Daryl. I certainly knew that her little friend would double cross her to save his husband. Yeah.
That's what I was just saying.
That sucks. It's not like Carol hasn't lied and double crossed anyone to get where she is.
She has.
No, she has more than anybody you've ever met.
I am clutching my pearls as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. She goes on and says, things aren't going too great for Daryl, but at least he got the kid out. As for Isabel, it doesn't look too good for her. It's never a good idea to make plans for the future, especially where Daryl is concerned.
That is very true.
I did like this episode, but I think it really was just a bridge to what looks like a bitching episode next week. Bitching.
Ooh, nice.
Nice.
Totally tubular, man.
Totally tubular. Just one niggle, though. I understand that there has to be a certain amount of danger that our lead characters are in, but wouldn't it have been better for them to end this episode on a cliffhanger for a character we know could die rather than one of the leads who can't? Just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit at length there. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Bev, writing in from still wet and windy Devon. Well, that sucks. Wet and windy.
Wet and windy.
That's a bad combination. I mean, if it's windy, it's windy. If it's wet, it's wet. But both together, gross.
Right.
So sorry about that. But thank you for writing in, Bev. We agree with pretty much everything you said.
Yeah.
If you listen through the podcast next week. Yeah. So there is one thing that I was going to discuss before we get into the, we'll talk about next week a little bit, but where do you see, I think the thing that's interesting is Daryl and Isabel, they fulfilled their destiny, or they fulfilled their pact of what they would do, because Laurent is safe.
Well, he's out of the nest right now.
He's out of the nest. And so when Janae, when she fights against the nest, when she goes and, assaults the nest,
right. Yeah.
he'll be gone. So he, in theory, he should be gone. So I'm just curious, like, how the next few episodes are gonna sort of fall, because, you know, the whole thing has all been centered around keeping Laurent safe. And I would say, you know, unless, because I think Falou is a believer, at least in keeping Laurent safe. And I don't know that he would turn around and go back if he sees that there's fighting. I think he would bring Laurent to safety to get him away from that fighting. I would like to think that.
Hey, so they tried to kill him too. So
yeah, he's not interested in the people.
No. I think his devotion now is solely towards Laurent.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just curious, like, how we sort of see, you know, they did have some clips for next week to sort of see a little bit of stuff, but, you know, how do we feel about, like, how the season will progress? Do you think Isabel and Daryl will meet back up with Laurent at all?
Oh yeah, I do. I kind of see it like immediately, whether this will be most likely because of the condensed season and this will happen next week, but maybe not. Maybe they drag it out. But I think one thing that could happen is Janae will launch her assault on the nest, and Lo Sang in, you know, a moment of peril, because let's remember, Daryl like wiped out like half their army in this episode. Okay, so they're down a lot of guards. And so in realizing that they're in deep doo-doo, because in the scenes for next week, we see that Janae like brings like a cannon with them, and they shoot it and they blow one of the doors open. So like, you know, they're not just gonna like, just let the walkers go and that'll be enough. It's like they're gonna do other things and use weapons against the nest. And, you know, the nest is a great fortress if you're in like the, you know, the Dark Ages, right? Where like the worst they have are like catapults and bows and arrows and stuff, but against modern artillery, that place would be turned into rubble in, you know, an hour. So
yeah,
it's not built to withstand any sort of modern tech. And when they start using it on them, I could totally see Lo Sang turning to Daryl and being like, could you help us out here? And so maybe that's how Daryl gets out of the chains in the shower cells and all that. I could also see, you know, in the confusion, he and Isabel are able to slip away, and I could also see Janae capturing them.
Yeah.
And taking them back, because again, we do get there was a glimpse of the Laurent's father's girlfriend, the torch singer.
Yeah, so we're going to end up back in Paris.
We have to get back to Paris somehow. So I think there's a lot of avenues open, but my definitely, I think this next episode is the end of the nest.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, it's either going to be destroyed, or they're going to be slaughtered, or they're going to be driven off, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not going to end well for all those religious idiots. So
yeah. So the only details we really have about next week's episode is the title La Paradis pour toi, which I did a rough Google translate, and I translated it as paradise for you. But on the Wikipedia page, they have in their captions, in their there's some translations there where they also translated it as heaven for you, which I think is sort of interchangeable, but heaven/paradise. But I'm, you know, curious what that refers to. But we also don't have an episode description, just some of those images that we saw at the end.
Right.
And that's all. That's all we got. So
I know. We'll have to see. You know. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I don't like when the scenes for next week give too much away.
Right. And they've been doing a really good job of not giving. I know that our format is to talk about like the episode title and description, you know, in our podcast, and I know between this and like the main series, when they were getting towards the end, that there was, you know, the the network is holding back on that stuff and not giving out the description because they don't want to give away too much.
Right.
But it's been a little bit frustrating, but I'm with you. Like, I agree. I'd rather be a little bit surprised by the events of the episode, because it's so hard to do that, you know?
Yeah.
The episodes themselves, they leaked somehow. I would assume somewhere along the way someone got screeners because they're a reviewer of some kind, and they're already out there. So like the last episode, I already knew the kiss was happening because someone said something online and I saw it by accident.
Okay.
So like stuff like that. So just be careful, because like all 6 are out there.
Yeah.
And if you're in the wrong place. So I tend to not go under the podcast social media. Like, we have our own like sort of Twitter account or X account, whatever. But I don't go through there unless we have like reactions or feedback about the actual episode, like on one of our posts. So if there isn't one, I usually don't go there until after I've watched the episode, because I don't want to be spoiled by anything. So just be careful out there, people. Those episodes are out. And I appreciate that that the network themselves has worked really hard to sort of keep that buttoned up as best they can. So yeah, we'll find out what happens next week all together at the same time.
Exactly.
So you added to our notes, I know you was it last night or the night before, you watched the new Salem's Lot?
It was on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm pretty sure I talked about this back in episode 237 when we reviewed The Shining.
Yep.
And if you haven't listened to that podcast, by the way, what are you
waiting for?
It was a really good one, where we really kind of got to chew on the greatness that is The Shining. But anyway, in that one, I'm pretty sure, and if I haven't, I probably have mentioned at some point, but Salem's Lot is my favorite Stephen King story. I love them all. I love them all dearly, but that one is special to me. And the reason why is when I was like -2 years old, I saw the 1979 made-for-TV miniseries of Salem's Lot, which starred David Soul, good old Hutch from Starsky and Hutch. And it's like a 3-hour thing, and for people younger folks are like, what's a mini series? Well, way back in the day, before any of the streaming services, when it was just the networks to show something besides their episodic TV would produce original programming. And like one of the most famous miniseries ever was Roots, right? That they took the Alex Haley book and turned it into like a 5 or 6 night thing. Well, they did the same thing with Salem's Lot, and I want to say it was 2 nights, but it might have been 3. And I watched that, and I had not read the book first, so that was my first experience with Salem's Lot. And parts of that miniseries, it's a TV thing, people, freaked me out. You know, the young -2 years old that I was at the time, it freaked me out. And so after it was over, I like went to the school library and got the Shining book and read, or Salem's Lot book, and read it, and was just blown away by it. And so it's always had a very special place in my heart. And I heard they were remaking it, and I thought, okay, it's remakes are remakes, right? And the guy that executive produced it is this guy named James Wan. Mm-hmm. And he is a big time horror producer. He did a lot of like the Annabelle movies and The Conjuring and that whole universe of films like Insidious and stuff like that. He did all of those. Okay. So in the last 15 years, he's been very prevalent in the horror film industry, and he's, it's fingerprints are all over it. And so I thought, all right, I'll just give it a shot and see what I think. And I purposely stayed away from reading anything about it, so I didn't know who was in it. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't want to hear anything. And I have to say, I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was a perfectly enjoyable movie. It's like 2 hours and 24 minutes long. It's on Max. It's a thing that they produce themselves, and so it's exclusive on their site. my like instant critique of it would be, and we were talking about this yesterday on socials, because another friend of ours, I'd posted that I was watching it, and a friend of ours had added a note, because you commented like, "Oh, what'd you think?" And
I wanted to know.
A friend of ours from the Chicago theater scene chimed in and said, I always love this. I'm real curious to hear what you have to think too, because she's very particular about her vampire stories, and Salem's Lot is one of the few that she liked. And I'm in the same boat with her in that I am super particular about vampires, and the whole Anne Rice vampire. I just vomit in the back of my mouth. The wussy moping around, I'm in love vampires drive me freaking crazy. I hate them. So I hate all that stuff. So I'm very particular. And my instant critique would be that this version of Salem's Lot is faithful to the novel, like Kubrick's Shining is faithful to the Shining novel, and that it is not at all.
Right.
And they trailblaze away, where there's like a lot of the characters from The Shining are in this. And there are some specific sequences or moments from the book that they pull into this. But overall, this is not the novel at all. So, but again, I enjoyed it. And one of the reasons I enjoyed it is that Bill Camp is in it. And
Bill Camp.
He is so great, right? And so he's in it and it's wonderful. And they keep it in the 70s, which is great. And so you see all of the 70s cars, and, people are using, phones with cords and rotary dials and all this stuff that I'm sure a vast audience that are going to watch this are like, what the hell is this? But so there are a lot of nice little touches. It's just, it is not Stephen King Shining, but Stephen King is an executive producer on it. So he signed off on it. It's on some level, right? That they included him, but it's. I think what, if you got a couple hours and you want to watch a spooky movie and you've never seen The Shining or Salem's Lot, check it out. It's great. And the cool thing I will say is that also on Max now they have the '79 movie available to watch as well.
Nice.
And so I watched it after I watched the new one, just to kind of go, oh yeah, this is the one that I'm more familiar with. And again, it's a TV movie, but it's directed by Tobe Hooper. Tobe Hooper very famously directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and a few years after Salem's Lot, he directed Poltergeist, just to kind of give you a sense. So yeah, and it's a great cast. It's got James Mason is in it, and the Susan, the love interest for Ben Mears, is played by Bonnie Bedelia, who most people recognize as Holly Gennaro / McClane from the Die Hard movies. Mm-hmm. So again, it's got a great like 70s cast of like famous like TV or B-level movie star type people, and it's available as well. So like I said, I enjoyed it. I think you should guys give it a listen, but don't go into it expecting it to follow the book all that closely, because it do not.
Yeah, so just, appreciate it for being like a separate piece of art. Like
exactly.
That's inspired by, but not necessarily.
Again, very similar, I think, in the way that you and I look at The Shining.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
That I adore the Stephen King novel. It's great. It's scary. It's amazing. And I, am fascinated and love the Kubrick movie, but they are two completely different things.
Two totally different animals. Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So and again, we are in spooky season, so
it
is certainly appropriate to consume the new version of Salem's Lot.
Yeah. And you mentioning spooky season just reminded me too, when you said if people haven't listened to our coverage of The Shining, I think what I need to do is maybe I need to do some posts and point people towards some podcasts of some spooky movies we've done over the last year or so to
I think you should.
To sort of point people in the right direction. So, if you want a companion listen of something to listen to while if you're doing one of those, 31 days of horror movies, or something along those lines. And maybe you want to listen to a podcast about whatever you just watched. maybe I'll put together some posts and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you should.
We covered a couple of fun things this past year, since last Halloween, that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and even further back from that too. Like, we've done some great stuff on some good classics, some newer things. So yeah, well, I'll have to do that. Let's do that.
All right. I think.
All right. Sounds like a plan. So that's going to do it for us this week, folks. We look forward to chatting with you next week about episode 4 for Daryl Dixon. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm La Steve. Bonjour.
Bonjour. And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, they just do not work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
By attending this meeting, I am consenting to being recorded. So, yes, Your Honor, I was aware.
Yeah. Not the only thing you're consenting to.
Hello.